Hi, my name is Mr. Rev Comrade Rowley, and I'm a CLACCA ULC ordained transgender male, asexual, forgotten Australian liberation hermeneutic clergy activist. Would just like to acknowledge that the land that we're meeting on is of the Gadigal and the Wangal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to the elders both past and present, and recognise sovereignty, treaty, and social justice has never been ceded. Today, I just wanted to talk to you about ULC ordination. And I guess also this is also a telling of my story and how I got ordained with the ULC. The reason why I'm making this video is in order to educate Australia about ULC ordination, because there is a little bit of misunderstanding in terms of the legality around ULC ordination, and what I mean by that. Is that there's an assumption that once you get ordained with the ULC, that's all you need to do. Well, I'm here to tell you in Australia, if you get ordained with an overseas church, you have to legally register it in Australia. Australia, just like any other church, it's not actually the end of the story. So the easy part, the easy part is getting ordained with the ULC. That's the easy part for anyone, regardless of your background, race, gender, culture, religion, sexuality, gender, age, or background. Yes, you can get ordained. Anyone can be an ordained minister with the Universal Life Church. But not everyone is legally registered in Australia. That's the first point. And secondly, not everyone actually understands the fact that once you get ordained with the ULC, then you have to legally register it in Australia. So I'm going to talk to you about that. In terms of myself, how I got ordained with the ULC, in about 2013, I was part of another church. I had been there for 5 years. I had a calling from God to be an ordained minister and go and explore ordained ministry, and I got that call during the No to Pope protest early on in my legal battles in which I was being framed and in the process of legally clearing my name, which I successfully did on the 27th of November 2013. At the time, I was dealing with a transphobic bully within the political movement, and then I was also dealing with another transphobic bully within a church that I had loved. I'd been part of this former church for about 5 years, and without going into too much details, essentially, I had thought that was going to be my church home, because it was the first. It was the first queer church that I had come across where it had said that it was okay to be both a socialist and a Christian. Both a socialist and a Christian, and it was okay to be both transgender and a Christian. Christian, and I had thought, I had wondered for about 5 years, why, why I was not being made a member, why I was not being accepted as part of this church, and I discovered that the partner was transphobic. And was relying on misinformation from a former work colleague to make their assessment. And I reached a point where the situation, the bullying that I was copying, was getting that bad, and it's the signs there at the time. It looked between the discrimination and bullying and lack of inclusion that I was experiencing. I broke down and cried on the church floor, and said to God that please help me please either help me to resolve this situation, or help me to find another church that's similar to this, and at that particular time, I then, a gust of wind, somebody had given me a big hug, and agreed what happened to me was wrong. Their name was Nathaniel. I've never seen Nathaniel since, but they gave me a big hug, and they pointed to the Bible to help me to find the answers. And on my way home, whether it was just the wind, I don't know, but essentially my Bible flicked open to the scriptures of the Johannine literature, and said at that time I needed to find an elder. And to cut a long story short, when that church basically cut me off without trial or anything, I felt at that particular time that there was no hope and there was no future for me. And I didn't know where the hell I was going to go. I didn't know. No, because this would go like where was I going to find like another dynamic, inclusive, progressive church? Where was I going to church? And what could I do to find? What could I do to convince them that, hey, I'm transgender, because at that particular time, I was still fighting for my legal transgender ID, because I'd been prevented. Like, I grew up in docs custody, and I'd come from a generation which sexuality and gender had been illegal in Australia, and I'd always struggled to be recognised as who I am, without discrimination by others. And I then got home, and I googled for an answer using the scriptures of the Johannine literature, and then I came across a little website about ULC ordination, and it was the first time I had heard about the Universal Life Church, etc. And The first one I initially came across was the monastery, and it was the monastery.org and initially I applied online, and it only took 30 seconds, and then I received a confirmation from the monastery that I had been ordained, and it was according to the scriptures of John 15, 16, 17. And so I was then ordained, having been ordained with the ULC Monastery initially. At that particular time, because the ULC was based in the United States, and I'd never seen a Universal Life Church in Australia. I didn't know if it was real, but essentially I said to God at that particular time, look, if I can't find a church that will recognise me as a transgender ordained minister within 5 years, I want to do two things. Because of the fact that I hadn't met another ULC ordained minister, I just said, look, if I can't find a church, any church in Australia that will accept me as a transgender ordained minister without discrimination, then I applied to ULC headquarters. Because essentially, because the second thing that I did is that I wanted to learn as much as I could about the ULC, because I didn't know if the church was real, and I had never come across. I as an adult survivor of abuse, and one who had experienced discrimination from the church, I didn't know if the church was real, or if this was some sort of a scam. So in that 5-year period that I set about trying to find another existing church in Australia within the queer movement, that would accept me as an ordained minister without discrimination. In the meantime, I set about learning as much as I could about the ULC. The other thing that I did after I had initially left the former church, I set up a home group Bible studies online, because I also had to discern what name I was going to call my ULC ministry, because I knew at the time, given the factor that, well, if the factor that, I don't know much about the ULC, and the ULC is based in America, that's a long way to travel for Australians, and we needed, and there wasn't one, there wasn't a ULC. There wasn't an established local ULC church in Australia. And I figured that, well, hey, well, if I I'm sure that there are others who haven't heard about the ULC, because essentially what I'd learned through the course of my struggle is that essentially, like most people, I had equated a church as being the building, but I had also been taught one of the things that I had been taught by my former church is that the church was the people. The church was the people, and it doesn't just exist within four walls of a building. Building. And so that was also the other thing that I did through the course of the teachings that I'd been taught by the former queer church was that the church was the people. The church was the people, and that even though my ULC ordination had happened overseas, at that particular time, I had really hoped and prayed to find a local church here in Australia that would recognise and accept me as an ordained minister. And in the meantime, I continued to learn as much as everything that I could about the ULC. I didn't do anything with my ULC ordination for about 5 years. I didn't. Initially, I didn't openly declare it because I didn't know if anyone would believe I was an ordained minister. That I'd applied online to get ordained with the church, and I'd been successfully accepted. The other parts that I had to learn about was the fact that once you get ordained with an overseas church, you've then got to legally register it in Australia. So once I had gotten my head all around the fact in terms of the legal status of ordination, I reached a point where I had run out of churches to explore ministry within Australia, and I'd run out of churches that failed to recognise me as an ordained minister in Australia. It was about 2017 in which I applied to get ordained with the ULC headquarters. And that was about after 5 years of research in which I actually found the real bricks and mortar original Universal Life Church that was based in Modesto, California, that was founded by Reverend Kirby Hensley in Modesto, California. I learned that about in the 1990s, then they had then established the ULC seminary in order for ULC ministers to be educated, because once you get ordained, with a church, that's kind of not the end of the story. Because traditionally in Australia, normally what you have to do is you complete a theology degree, and then you get candidated, and then once you've been candidated, then you go and legally register it. In the case of the ULC, what I see is they do the ordination first. They do the ordination first, and then and then you do training, and then you legally register it. Register it. So, I was really grateful. I And at that particular time, from about 2014. I had already started completing a Bachelor of Theology degree, and agree. And so that was helpful. Completing a Bachelor of Theology degree with Charles Sturt University for me. I not only discovered that it was a legal requirement for ordained ministry in Australia to have some sort of training, but for me, it was really helpful. It's been really helpful studying a Bachelor of Theology degree at Charles Sturt University, because it helped me. It helped me learn the hermeneutics of the Bible. It helped me learn the history of the church in Australia, and it also helped me to transition my socialist what I've been taught from in party school through Socialist Alliance. It also helped me to be able to translate it in an education way, because I learned about sexuality in the Bible, sexuality and gender in the Bible, from my former queer church, but things that I had to learn about was in terms of the legalities around ordination, because what I had discovered in Australia is that ordination has been a very closed door practice, and there didn't seem between the churches, because of the fact of it being this closed door practice. There didn't seem to be a clear step-by-step guide. There didn't seem to be a clear step-by-step guide in terms of the process of getting ordained with the church, from baptism to ordination, going and being a doctor, etc. There's a clear process. You've got to go to medical school. You've got to go to medical school, and then you've got to get certified by a medical board, and then you've got to legally register it. Same as going and being a lawyer. You've got to go to lawyer school. You've got to go to lawyer school and then get picked, etc. They just didn't. Between all the different, due to the factor of ordination being a very closed door practice in Australia, they just to me there didn't seem to be a closed door practice. There didn't seem to be an open, clear practice of what is the process, what is the step by step process in terms of getting ordained and becoming a minister, because some say, oh, it's a calling from God, and that is true, and that is true. Being an ordained minister, it is a calling from God, because of the factor that's it's not the easiest job in the world. It's not the easiest job in the world, in the sense that the pay is lousy. You're not always going to be guaranteed. You're not always going to be guaranteed a paycheck. check. You have to rely on a bucket. You have to rely on a bucket for donations to cover costs. Um, us, particularly when you, and also the other factor is that when you church planting, church planting, you essentially, like, you're starting off with like no money, no people, and no building. So um, so yeah, for me, like, it had been a calling from God, or God, like the fact that, like, I'm speaking about this now, almost 10 years on. It's about 9 years on now, but coming up to almost 9 years on the fact that I'm still an ordained minister. It really is a calling from God. God, because um, in between, God, God. There's no other way to describe it. Because, like, anyone can be an ordained minister, but not everyone is legally registered. Registered. And so for me, I found it was good having that. It was, even though, look, it wasn't a pleasant experience in terms of having to deal with bullying from my former church. Um, but it was useful taking that 5 years to learn as much as I could about the ULC. ULC. And I'm really thankful that I did take the time to learn as much as I could about ULC ordination. So um, yeah, so once I had reached a point where I had run out of churches, I then started holding, like, home group Bible studies, and I got a few people that would turn up every week, and then I applied to get ordained with the ULC headquarters, and I then ordered my ULC credentials online, both from the ULC Monastery and the ULC headquarters. The first thing that I ordered from both churches was an ordination packs, and they both churches said that, told me that I then had to go and legally register it in Australia, and it was only when I got the second confirmation from ULC headquarters, and it was only when I received the ULC credentials in the mail. That was when I officially openly declared that I was an ordained minister. Initially, other churches, it seemed like this was another thing they didn't support, and there was the primary experience that I normally had is other churches having a problem with the fact that the ULC had ordained me without discrimination. That was essentially the initial problem that I had, and because I'd openly declared it at the same in the year of winning marriage equality in Australia. Of course, I was targeted by the no voters. The no voters who essentially wanted to. And the no voters, they were not part of the ULC, but essentially they wanted to stop ULC ordained ministers. Ministers from studying at my university, from completing theology degrees at my university because of the fact that ULC ordained ministers have always supported marriage equality from the beginning, and have always supported ordination of LGBTIQA plus people from the beginning. And it was also the factor that they didn't accept the facts. The no voters didn't. They didn't want transgender ordained ministers to be studying theology degrees, and the university came out and supported us, and through the no voters, accusations against us out, and we won the equal right to complete a theology degree at my university. And while I still copped a little bit of bullying, the thing that they couldn't do is that the no voters, they couldn't stop me from completing a theology degree simply because I happen to be transgender and ordained with the ULC, and the university had said, look, hey, it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement to be part of a particular church denomination to complete a theology degree in Australia. And the university said, well, the ULC is not a recognised church in Australia. However, there was no justification in the policy for another church to prevent us from completing a theology degree simply because they didn't accept transgender ordained ministers who support who actively campaign for marriage equality in Australia. And so we successfully won that. So from the time that I openly declared it, my next task I then went and did is I then went and sought the process of going to legally registering it in Australia. And so I went to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General's office said to us that with the legalisation of marriage equality in Australia, there's going to be a fourth category of religious celebrant, and yes, you will see ordained ministers can get legally registered in the fourth category of religious as a religious celebrant on the conditions that we complete a minimum of a certificate 4 in celebrancy, so that we understand the legalities of solemnising marriage rights, understand the legalities around doing funerals, and understand the legalities of doing ceremonies, and understand the importance of not discriminating, etc. So I was really thankful to be told that advice, and so then through I then began completing a certificate 4 in celebrancy, but then I quickly realised that, hey, while you're trying to complete a theology degree and also trying to complete a Cert 4 in celebrancy, it's really difficult to do 2 courses at once. So at that particular time, I then put the certificate 4 in celibrancy on hold, and said that when I've completed my theology degree, I will then go back and complete the certificate 4 in celibrancy. And so then I talked to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General explained the situation, and what the Attorney General came back to us and said that as long as we continue to undertake studies, we can continue to openly declare we're an ordained minister. But if we want to legally solemnize marriage ceremonies, then I would need to have a supervising ordained minister who is legally registered with me in order to do a marriage ceremony. Ceremony until you complete your studies. So that is so that's the ongoing agreement that we have between us and the Attorney General. The other thing that I did is because I wanted to prevent the Australian government doing what they did to Reverend Kirby Hensley, because one of the things that I learned about Reverend Kirby Hensley's struggle to fight for the universal life, fight for both ordination to be legal in the US, and fight for the Universal Life Church to be accepted as a legal church. One of the things that I learned through the course of his court battles and fight and protests to fight for that to happen is that the United States government had taken Reverend Kirby Hensley to court because the United States government initially tried to argue that it was a business, that it was a business. That their process of ordination, the open ordination without discrimination, it was initially considered to be a business by the United States government, and Kirby Hensley won that court battle because of the fact that ordination had always been free, and no fee had ever been charged, and like for me, likewise, I've never been charged a fee to be an ordained minister. The only money that I had to pay for was to order a copy of my credentials online, and to pay for clergy materials. But in terms of the actual ordination part, it didn't cost me a penny. It didn't cost me a penny to get ordained with the Universal Life Church. However, to get ULC ordination legally registered in Australia, the Attorney General does charge a $600 fee. And while we're working on trying to get exemptions from paying the fee for people who are on Centrelink benefits. Essentially after you have completed the certificate 4 in celibrancy, and you get two people who will give you character references, And the other thing that you have to get is 2 letters of good standing that you're authorised by the church to solemnise marriage rights in Australia. And you can get them from both. So you will need one letter of good standing from the ULC ULC.net, the headquarters in Modesto, California. The other letter of good standing that you need is it is from the monastery. That's the second part. That you need. And so once you've completed the certificate for celebrancy, and you have letters of good standing, you also need to pass a working with children check background. I passed that. And the working with children check background check clearance. It does involve a police check, and so I was approved and cleared for a working with children check clearance. There was nothing in my background that they could find that was against me being an ordained minister, and so I was approved for a working with children check clearance. And I was also given the legal rights, unlimited rights, legal rights to work in Australia. And so I passed all the background checks, and essentially the only thing that I have left to complete now is I just have to finish completing my Bachelor of Theology degree, and I also just have to finish completing the certificate for celebrancy. And then once I've completed those studies, I then can go and get it legally registered. Registered. The other part that I've probably learned through the course of all this is the difficulty of church planting and planting. So essentially what I learned in Australia. So in terms of actually becoming a local church in Australia, to become an affiliate church of the Universal Life Church, you need three. You need at least 3 people. In order to legally register a local church in Australia, you need at least 5 people on a local church committee. So that's. So in terms of where we're up to in CLACCA ULC is ULC. The first part, initially what we're focusing on at the moment is legal registration of ordination in Australia, and the other thing we're working on is getting the 5 people to form a local church committee in order to legally register it in Australia. The Australian Taxation Department, essentially what I did in relation to that, I just called the Australian Taxation Office and I said, initially office, and I said to them, hey, I'm an ordained minister and I would like to get a tax file number. Number. It was almost like I was almost daring the Australian government, and essentially the Australian Taxation Office, they said to us that they were happy to grant us a tax exemption, and they were happy to Initially, the Australian Taxation Office, they asked us, why do you want a tax file number? And at that particular time, one of the things that I had learned is, in order to legally register it, you needed a tax file number. You needed a church tax file number, and so I had said to them that, well, the reason why I need a tax file number is in order to register our church in Australia. We need a tax file number. And so they wound up. They granted us a tax file number under the not-for-profit church status. That was one of the things that they did, and so we haven't had to pay any taxes. Part of giving us a tax file number with tax exempt status. They also gave us an ABN, but as a not-for-profit church, and so they recognised the fact that we're not a business, which we're a church, because I was very when I applied for a church tax file number, I made it very clear to them, hey, we're not a business, we're not doing this to make money. Money. We don't even have a bank account. We don't have any. We don't even have a bank account. And essentially we have to rely on crowdfunding to cover our costs, and we're lucky if we get like $5 and so the tax department said to us. Yes, that we unless we start making a profit, the Australian Taxation Office said to us, we will leave you alone. So in terms of the Australian Taxation Office, we've never had any hassles from the Australian Taxation Office, and likewise, we've never, in terms of me and my CLACCA ULC Ministry, we've never had hassles. We've never been classified as a business. We've been the Australian Taxation Office has accepted the fact that, hey, we're a church. No, we're a church. We're not doing this to make money, and we're lucky. We're not doing this to make money, and we're lucky if we get $5 in donations, if that, and then it reached a point initially in which when the bills started coming in, it then reached a point where I was struggling to basically survive and eat, and so we then met with I then got the okay from the ULC to open up a church bank account, so that we could start to take donations. And donations, because it was either that or I was going to basically starve to death, because all the costs was coming out of my disability support pension, because initially I was just doing everything for free and just covering the I was refusing to accept any money from anyone, and just paying for the costs all out of my disability support pension. But I reached a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And so it became necessary. It became a matter of life and death to open up a church bank account in order to start accepting donations to cover costs, particularly Um, particularly when we initially got asked to go and march in Mardi Gras. Essentially, in about it was about 2017, going on to 2018. Once I'd been through all the legal registration process, I was doing the film Right, ABC Right, the first Mardi Gras, and I had there was a 1978 couple who asked me to solemnize when as soon as marriage equality was becoming legal. They had asked me if I could legally solemnize their marriage ceremony at Mardi Gras, and I said to them that I would need to have a legally registered ordained minister to supervise me, because ULC ordained ministers were still fighting. We're still fighting for legal recognition in Australia. And I've also got to complete my training. I've also still got to complete my training, and so we had an agreement. And we applied. So we then made an application to Mardi Gras to apply to solemnize their marriage ceremony. Ceremony in Mardi Gras. The first year we applied, Mardi Gras knocked us back, and the reason that they said is because they had other entries. Entries. So there was no and there was no particular reason. The 1978 couple, they were pretty upset about that. And the Sydney Star Observer. They wound up. They wanted to cover the story. But the couple didn't really want to talk to the media. After Mardi Gras had ejected the application because they were really hurt. They were really hurt because they were 1978ers, and it had been their dream to get married, get their marriage legally solemnized at Mardi Gras. And so initially when Mardi Gras realized the mistake that they had made, initially they offered us a consolation prize, in which they said to us, we're prepared to offer you a space. You can't march in Mardi Gras, but we're prepared to offer you, a space, to solemnize the marriage. The couple, the couple, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to get married in Mardi Gras, and the couple said no, and at that particular time. After that, we then began. So even though the couple wound up never recovered from being told by Mardi Gras that they couldn't get married, we said, well, let's continue the fight for the equal right to march in Mardi Gras. Because Mardi Gras needs to be inclusive. So essentially, at the first AGM we questioned on about that, and while we didn't get while there were many that supported us. We at that particular time we made the assessment. Well, let's build our ground forces up, and then take on Mardi Gras AGM for more inclusion. But in the meantime, we will question Mardi Gras about being more inclusive. And so kept applying every single year for a right. In the meantime, we just did a church stall We just did a Fair Day church stall every year. And then out of the blue, a few months ago, we finally got accepted. We finally got accepted for the equal right to march in Mardi Gras, and so that was a welcome relief. Through the course of that, through the course of my experience of having now been an ordained minister with the ULC for the past 9 years, what I learned that there still seemed to be this emphasis I've came across a few other ULC ordained ministers. So not long after I got ordained with the ULC in 2017, I then started coming across other ULC branches in Australia. So the first one I came across was in the next one I then heard about was just after one got legally recognised in Western Australia. And so I got in contact with them and I asked them, I said, what did you do to get the ULC legally registered? And they told me that they got it legally registered as a charity. And for me, well, I personally, I didn't want to, I didn't want the church to be a welfare charity, and so at that particular time, we wanted to be a legal church, and we wanted our ULC ordination. We discovered they didn't. They wanted to be a charity. They wanted they wanted to be a charity, and so we agreed to disagree on that question. I then came across I came across a ULC in Brisbane, and I also came across a ULC in Melbourne, in other parts of Australia, and they hadn't quite got their head around the fact that there is a process of legally registering ULC ordination in Australia, and there is a process of becoming, and so they're still fighting for to be legally registered, and haven't got up to the stage where they have a full understanding of the process of legally registering. Others I've come across have had this emphasis that once I got emphasis in particularly those who have only applied to get ordained with the monastery, they seem to have the impression that once they get ordained with the monastery, that's all they need to do. And they haven't learned the factor that when you get ordained with the ULC monastery, you need to be aware of the fact that the monastery is not the original ULC. The original ULC is established is with Modesto, California headquarters, and that the monastery it's only been in existence since 1977. And the original ULC was established in 1959 in Modesto, California. And there was also a split that had happened in the ULC in about 2006 between the monastery and ULC headquarters. And while that's probably a story for another video. For now, I hope this video has been informative. I realize I've been talking for like about an hour, and I'm going to try and make a shorter version of this. But I hope this has been helpful and useful. If you would like to learn more about the ULC, please feel free to contact us at head to our website at CLACCA ULC Sydney.go-to-these-sites.com, and you can contact us on our mobile 0459 771 520, or you can also stay in touch on our Facebook page. That's all for now. Thank you very much. God bless, and take care. Bye for now.